Christ is risen. Truly, he is risen. Friends, it's Father PJ here, and I just wanted to offer a couple of brief thoughts as we shift from this time that is largely at home to a gradual return to regular life outside our homes, and especially back to regular life, or something like regular life here at church. Today, the bishop's office will be releasing a memorandum to the parishes that's meant to give us a kind of a roadmap or a plan for how to prepare to bring you all back to church. And so beginning next week, we'll be able to roll out some more very specific things. If you are part of any liturgical ministries or other sort of things that help with Mass here, so I'm thinking here especially of extraordinary ministers of Holy Communion, lectors, the whole of our music ministry, our host ministers and ushers especially, you'll be receiving communications from us early next week to talk about what things are going to be necessary as we begin to regather. And this is a plea very especially for those of you that may not be part of those ministries in the past, but that could be yet in the future. Some things are going to have to shift as we move forward, and especially in the area of host ministry or ushers, we're going to need to think very keenly and differently about how we've done things before, because our physical space is going to be limited in ways that we haven't known in the past. And I'm also very conscious of the fact that many of our ushers and host ministers find themselves in the vulnerable population. And so they may be unwilling to come back, at least at the beginning, or it may be unwise for them to come back at the beginning. And so we're going to need to augment our ranks a little bit, because we're going to need more people in general and probably have fewer to draw from in order to do it. Father Ronaldo and I are also in the process of figuring out how the Mass schedule might need to change. The priests, especially the young priests who aren't part of the vulnerable population, we find ourselves being asked to take on some extra burdens right now in order to alleviate those that weigh on the priests who are older and more at risk. And as a result, we're all in this together, everybody in the parish, but also the whole diocese. And so timetables are probably going to have to change a little bit here too. So I can't tell you today, this is going to be when Masses are, beginning the last weekend in May or something like that. We don't have the timetable yet, and that likely will be a little bit of a moving target as things move forward, just as it was a moving target as we began to shut things down. But what I can tell you is that things are not going to be the same. This isn't going to be coming back to just exactly what we left, 8 weeks ago. And it's going to require all of us together to make this work, to have the graces of the sacraments restored back to the church. The other thing I want to offer is just a brief moral exhortation. It's what I was trying to aim at in my homily today, but it didn't come out quite the way I wanted. I know the temptation right now is wherever we kind of land on the political or church-wise spectrum to just kind of dig our heels in and talk about stuff that we don't really know very much about and have strong opinions. And here's the thing. I've grown concerned as I've watched the last several weeks, the way in which when things like this always happen, people immediately go to sort of doomsday scenarios. It's the end of the world. This is God's judgment on. Here is the one thing that everyone who has ever predicted the end of the world and the whole of history has in common. They were wrong. It's a sucker bet. You'll always wind up wrong. Of course, the world will end someday, but I think at this point, God will deliberately not do it once a human being has said it just to spite us. That's just not how this works. And we know it's not how it works because he said he didn't know the day or the hour, and you're not better than him. So, inasmuch as these devotions or private revelations or personal reflections on the end of the world cause you to pray more, fast more, and be more charitable to your neighbor, go for it. I don't care. But inasmuch as it causes you to amp up your anxiety, be restless and afraid, worried about what's going to happen, constantly chastising your neighbor, stop it. Turn it off. Whatever's causing you to think this way, it's bad for your head and it's bad for your heart. Same thing's true for the political stuff, right? Most of us are not medical professionals or politicians. There's very little any of us can do on this score. What we do have absolute control over, or relatively absolute control over, is the way that we act. and the way that we interact with the people around us. And the very last thing that I want is for us to come together after all this time apart and each of us spout off every crazy idea we've had for the last several weeks and cause more discord than harmony. We need to be back together because we need each other, but we need the best of each other, not the worst. So please work with me to bring that about, not only for ourselves, but for the whole parish, the local church, and the world.